After 27 years of marriage, I thought I knew the man I laid next to every night. I thought we'd been through enough storms to know what love looked like, even when it got tired. So when he came home on my birthday with a crumpled bouquet from the gas station, and a tight smile that said, "We're broke, baby. I'm sorry, it's all I could do," I swallowed my disappointment and told myself, it's the thought that counts. But later that night, when I was taking out the trash, I saw a little white bag tucked inside the bin, not torn, not buried, just sitting there like it was waiting on me. Inside was a receipt. A $2,300 diamond bracelet, not for me. The name on the gift tag wasn't mine. That moment split something wide open in me. It wasn't just about the bracelet, it was about 27 years of being the one who held things together, who went without, who made things stretch. That was the night I stopped accepting crumbs. That was the night I stopped being quiet. And that was the night I started telling my truth. Hello, it's Granny. And if you're listening to this right now, if you stayed past the first few seconds and let my words settle into your spirit, I want to thank you. Not just for clicking, but for staying. For sitting with me, for giving me your time, even if the world around you hasn't been too kind with it lately. Now tell me something. Where are you tuning in from? I always love knowing where my story travels. Whether you're listening from a small town in Georgia, a quiet apartment in Chicago, or a porch swing out in Texas, say something in the comments. I want to feel where you are, feel the heartbeat of your space while I share mine. And if you've ever been in the spot I'm in now, if someone you trusted looked you in the eye and still handed you a lie, I want you to tell me your story too. You can send it straight to my email, or leave it in the comments below if your heart feels strong enough to do that. Every story matters, even the ones told through tears. I read every word, because no truth should have to sit alone in the dark. Well, let me tell y'all who you're listening to. My name is Lillian Mae Carter. I'm 68 years old, born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I've lived through a war, raised 3 kids, survived breast cancer, and buried more secrets than I care to count. I got one hip that creaks when the weather changes, and a laugh that scares birds off the fence. But my heart, it's still beating strong, even after everything. I met my husband, Henry James Carter, at a church fish fry when I was just 20. He had a clean smile, calloused hands, and a voice like warm syrup. He asked me if I wanted extra hush puppies, and I said only if he was cooking them. We fell hard and fast. Didn't have much in the beginning. A 1-bedroom apartment over his uncle's garage, 1 set of good towels, and dreams bigger than our checkbook. But we built a life. We had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and every single one of them grew up on meals stretched with love, lights kept on by prayer, and shoes patched more times than I care to admit. Henry worked hard. Truck driver for over 2 decades. Always on the road, but always came home with some little trinket or story. He wasn't perfect, but I believed he was mine, all the way down to his soul. I ironed his shirts, packed his meals, prayed over his pillow every time he left for another haul. We had our ups and downs, bills that scared us, fights over things neither one of us could fix. But I never stopped showing up, never stopped loving him. Not even when the house went quiet and the kids moved out. Not even when the TV became the only thing talking in the evenings. But something changed along the way. He stopped calling when he was out late. Started hiding his phone like it was a stranger's number on the other end. Stopped saying "I love you" unless I said it first. And his eyes, he used to look at me like I was the only woman in the world. But lately, he stared past me. Even when I was standing right in front of him, he said nothing. But his silence spoke loud, and somewhere deep down, I started bracing for something I couldn't name yet. I just didn't know the truth would find me, on my birthday, in a garbage can. My birthday fell on a Tuesday that year. Not that it mattered much. Once you pass 65, birthdays don't come with balloons and big surprises. You just hope the phone rings a few times and that someone remembers what day it is. But still, after 27 years of marriage, you think your husband might at least look you in the eye and mean it when he says happy birthday. He didn't. Henry came home around 5 that evening. Didn't knock, didn't greet me with a kiss, just walked in, placed a plastic-wrapped bouquet from the gas station on the kitchen counter. No ribbon. No note. The kind that come with a barcode still stuck to the side and petals already browning on the edges. He looked tired, but it wasn't the kind of tired from working a long day. It was the kind of tired that comes from carrying a lie. He barely made eye contact. "Money's been tight, babe," he said, without even taking off his jacket. "Maybe next year I can make it up to you." I stood there, smiling soft and small. Nodded, like it didn't sting. But it did. Not because I wanted diamonds. Not because I needed some big celebration. But because after all the years, all the sacrifices, after nursing him through surgeries, holding down the house through layoffs, praying over him in the middle of the night when I didn't know if he was safe on the road, I got gas station flowers and a shrug. That night, dinner was quiet. No candles, no singing. Just two tired people chewing slower than usual. I asked him how his route had been. He said it was fine. That was it. He didn't ask me about my day. Didn't ask how I felt. Didn't ask anything. I cleared the table alone, wiped the counter, ran the dishwasher. I told myself not to cry. That maybe he was going through something. That maybe love just looked different with age. It wasn't until I went to take the trash out later that night that the truth finally walked into the room without knocking. I tied the bag, same as always. Stepped out into the cool evening air. The porch light flickered like it always did when the wind picked up. And then I saw it. A small white shopping bag, neatly placed beside the trash can, not inside it. Like it had been set there gently. Like someone had meant to come back for it. Or didn't want it buried too deep. I bent down, curious. Opened the bag. Inside was tissue paper, folded clean, a receipt. My hands didn't shake at first. It was a local jeweler, one I recognized, a place downtown I'd passed 100 times but never gone into. A $2,300 diamond tennis bracelet, gift wrapped. The name on the tiny folded gift tag? It wasn't mine. My name is Lillian. The tag said, "To Monique, you shine brighter than anything I could buy." I stood there in the dark, holding that bag like it was proof in a courtroom. It wasn't just a bracelet. It was the weight of every moment I doubted myself and said nothing. It was the answer to every late night he didn't come home when he said he would. It was the end of every excuse I'd made on his behalf. And right there, with the porch light buzzing above me, I knew I had been the budget. And someone else had been the gift. I stood there under that flickering porch light, the night air pressing against my chest like a weight, holding that little receipt like it had fangs. It was printed on thick paper, not the thin, curled-up kind you get from the grocery store. No, this was elegant, embossed, with the name of a high-end jeweler downtown, a place that served champagne while you shopped, the kind of store that didn't buzz you in unless they liked the way you looked. The item listed was clear as day. 14K white gold diamond tennis bracelet, 7.5 inches. Custom engraved, boxed and wrapped. The total? $2,314.26. That number echoed in my mind like a siren. Not because I care about the money. Lord knows I've never been a woman who measured love in carats or costs, but because I'd been told just hours earlier that money's been tight. Tight. So tight that gas station flowers were all he could do. So tight that dinner had been quiet and thin, with no plans for a night out or even a slice of cake. But not too tight for diamonds. Not too tight for her. And then I saw the name. To Monique. I'm not Monique, I've never been Monique. And that's when it hit me. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't crumble to the floor like they do in those movies. I just stared. And suddenly the whole world got very, very quiet. The wind stopped, the crickets stopped, even the doubt in my head stopped. And in that stillness, I saw every sacrifice laid out in front of me like a row of unmarked graves. I saw the job I gave up in my 20s to follow him when his company moved out of state, even though I had just gotten promoted. I saw the years I spent raising 3 children while he worked the road, gone more than he was home. And I never complained, not once. I saw myself spoon-feeding his sick mother for 6 months straight, when she couldn't hold her own fork, because he couldn't handle seeing her like that. I saw my hands, the ones that washed his clothes, pressed his collars, bandaged his wounds, prayed over his meals. I saw all of it, and realized it had been quietly priced down to a discount bouquet and a lie. It didn't matter how many years I'd held us together. It didn't matter how many birthdays I smiled through with nothing but a card and a promise. I was the one who held the weight of the marriage. But she was the one he gifted. She was the sparkle, the indulgence. She was the prize. And me? Turns out I was the budget. After Ava told me what she saw at that mall, I sat on my porch for a long time. I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I just sat real still, the kind of still where your soul does all the talking. I stared out at the garden beds I'd spent the last 15 years tending. I remembered how Henry used to bring me mulch every spring, act like it was some grand romantic gesture. Ain't no roses this year, but here's 10 bags of topsoil. And I used to smile, because back then I thought anything wrapped in effort was love. But now? Now I was staring down a trail of secrets so loud it made the silence feel violent. That night, after the house got quiet, I walked into our shared office, the one I hardly ever touched, and I sat down at the computer. I opened the bank accounts, typed slow, clicked careful, heart thumping in my ears, and what I saw confirmed what my soul already knew. There were withdrawals I hadn't made, charges from restaurants I'd never been to, gift purchases, hotel stays. One of them was dated 3 days before my birthday, a dinner for 2 at a steakhouse that required reservations a week in advance, $186.42, gratuity included. I stared at that number like it had teeth. My hands trembled over the mouse, not because I was surprised, but because I was done being naive. Done brushing it off. Done praying it away. Done giving the benefit of the doubt when the truth was bold, printed, and sitting right in front of me. I grabbed a yellow notepad and started writing. Every transaction, every date, every lie. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I just wrote. Slow and steady. And when I finished, I looked at that paper, and I saw something clearer than his betrayal. I saw mine. The betrayal I'd done to myself, the nights I swallowed words to keep peace, the days I ignored my own intuition, the years I let loyalty outweigh self-respect. That's when I knew what I had to do. Not burn the house down. Not make a scene, not tell the children. Not yet. I was going to handle this the same way I'd handled everything else in my life. With dignity. With clarity. With silence sharp enough to cut glass. So I waited. Waited until the next evening, when he came home, kicked off his shoes, and turned on the TV like nothing in the world had shifted. I sat across from him at the kitchen table. Laid the receipts in a neat stack. Placed the bank statement on top. Didn't say a word. Just looked at him, let him see it, let him feel the weight of truth land between us like a brick drop from heaven. And when he opened his mouth to speak, I raised my hand, not to hit, just to pause him. Don't lie, I said, quiet but firm, not this time, not to me. He blinked, swallowed, and said nothing. For the first time in years, he said nothing, and that silence, that was my turning point. Because I didn't raise my voice, I raised my standard, and from that day on, he knew the woman sitting across from him wasn't the same one he'd been lying to. She had returned to herself. And she wasn't going anywhere. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had to, but because for the first time in years, I wanted to. The house was quiet. Not the uneasy kind, not the kind where you're tiptoeing around someone else's mood. This was the kind of quiet that wrapped around your shoulders like a soft shawl and said, "You're safe here now." He was still in the guest room. Didn't even try to come to the table. I let him stay there. I had other things to tend to. First thing I did was call a locksmith. A young man came out within the hour. He changed the locks on every door. Front, back, garage, all of them. When he asked why, I just smiled and said, "It's time for a new season." He nodded like he understood. After he left, I moved through the house like a woman reclaiming her land. I took every framed photo of us off the mantle, not to erase the past, but to give the future room to breathe. I packed away the wedding album, the anniversary plaques, the little souvenirs from road trips that were full of forced smiles. I didn't break anything. I didn't burn a thing. I just packed it with care. Because even pain deserves to be stored gently when you're done carrying it. Then I went into our shared bedroom and took back my space. Moved my jewelry box from the dresser, the one he'd pushed to the side to make room for his cologne and cufflinks, back to the center where it used to be. I dusted off my vanity mirror and stared at myself for a long while. Not judging, not picking, just seeing. The lines around my eyes, the softness in my jaw, the wisdom in my shoulders. I looked like a woman who had survived, a woman who had come home to herself. That afternoon, I brewed a fresh pot of tea. My favorite blend with lavender and orange peel, and I walked out onto the porch. Sat down in my rocker, held that cup in both hands and breathed in slow. The silence that used to feel heavy now felt like healing. No more guessing. No more waiting for a door to slam or a story to shift. Just me, breath. My chair. My peace. Later that evening, Ava stopped by again. She brought me a slice of cake from a new bakery downtown. Said, "You deserve sweetness, Grandma." Even on a regular day, we sat on the porch together, talking about nothing and everything. Laughed a little. Cried a little. Held hands for a while. She didn't ask about him. And I didn't bring him up, because some things don't need rehashing. Some endings speak for themselves. That night, I laid my head down on my pillow. No tears. No weight in my chest, no footsteps to wait for. And I slept better than I had in years. A few weeks passed. He didn't move out right away, just stayed in the guest room, quieter than usual. He'd come in late, leave early. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, it means guilt. Then the texts started. Short ones, like he was testing the waters. "Need anything from the store? Hope your back's feeling better. You've been on my mind." I didn't reply. Then came the calls. Late at night. I never answered, but he left voicemails anyway. Voice soft, almost rehearsed. "I know I messed up. I took you for granted. You were always good to me." Still, I said nothing. I didn't block him. I didn't lash out. I just let silence carry the message. One day I found an envelope on the porch, plain white, my name on the front, written in his hand. Inside was a letter. Long, apologetic, folded neatly like he thought good paper and proper grammar might make up for empty years. He wrote about regrets, about moments he wished he could take back, about how lonely the house felt now that I wasn't sitting beside him at the table. He said he'd been stupid, said Monique didn't mean anything, that it was a moment, that it was over, that he didn't know what he was thinking. He wrote, "I miss your voice. I miss your laugh. I miss the way you made this house feel like home." I read every word. Sat right in the same chair I'd sat in when I found the receipt. Sunlight coming through the window, my tea cooling beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just read it all, slow, careful. And when I got to the end, I folded the paper back into the envelope and set it aside. Then I looked into the camera, into the eyes of whoever needed to hear what I had finally come to know. Some sorries are meant to free the speaker, not the listener. And that was it. I didn't text back, didn't call, didn't write a letter of my own. Because closure doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with no response at all. And peace knows I don't owe him anything. Not my pain, not my attention. Not even my forgiveness. Some people return because they miss the access, not because they've changed. And some women, like me, learn to close the door and leave it closed. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Because strength isn't always in the leaving. Sometimes it's in the staying gone. Let me say this, plain and clear, so it don't get lost in the silence. You can spend years, decades even, loving someone with everything in you, and still not be loved back the way you deserve. You can cook their meals, hold their secrets, raise their children, and cover their shame, and still be left with the gas station bouquet while someone else wears the diamond bracelet. But that don't make you the fool. That makes you the foundation. You were the steady. You were the one who stayed when it got hard. You were the prayer, the patience, the peace, and if someone couldn't see that, that's on them, not you. Here's what I learned the long way. Never be so loyal that you betray yourself. Don't silence your own heart to keep someone else's image intact. Don't sit in a room where love has gone missing just because you remember how sweet it used to sound. We teach people how to treat us by what we allow, and I allowed too much for too long. But not anymore. I may be 68, I may walk a little slower, but I move with truth now. I speak for women who stayed too long, loved too deep, and finally said, enough. So if this touched you, if this story felt like a chapter from your own life, I want you to tell me about it. Drop it in the comments. Don't let your pain sit in silence. Let it breathe. Let it be heard. And if you want to hear more truths from this old heart, if you want stories that don't just end but unfold, hit that subscribe button. Because this voice, it may tremble sometimes, but it ain't going quiet no more. Thank you for listening to an old woman's truth. Now tell me yours.